Ask an Expert. I am Jessa, if you're not watching, and I'm here with Stephanie Hayes, who's going to talk to us about working equitation today. And before we hopped on, I told Stephanie that all of my questions will be coming from a genuine place because I really know very, very little about working equitation. So consider this like an introduction to working equitation. I'll ask all of the silly questions so you all don't have to. But before we get started, Stephanie, thank you so much for taking the time to teach us about this.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to share.
So, can we get started? Will you just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are in the world, and your riding background?
Sure. I live in northern Vermont, in Johnson, Vermont, up in the middle of the mountains. And I live with my husband on a 60-acre farm where I think I'm down to 13 horses right now. And I teach a little bit at home, but I'm mostly traveling, teaching clinics every weekend. Um, I started my career in the horse world when I was in my early 20s. I'd grown up riding as a kid. I grew up in California, and it just my life in the horse world has just kind of evolved and has taken many different avenues over the last 30 plus years. I started out as an event rider in my early 20s, which was really fun. And then I got interested in dressage, but not so much competitive. Dressage as training. And really loved loved the education that I was getting that I could put onto horses, and just really um, putting a nice solid foundation on horses, which led me into being a natural horsemanship clinician for 20 years. And um, after some years of feeling like I was tired of going around in 20-meter circles, and so were my horses and my students. I was looking for something new and exciting to do.
And that led you to
That
working
brought me to
equitation.
working.
It's
Yeah.
I,
Um,
um, I could see well, first of all, being down to 13 horses is hilarious. Um, are those horses that are you riding a lot of them?
I'm riding a lot of them. Right now, I have five indoors for the winter. Um, so I'm actively riding five. I have two that should be coming along that I need to get started. And then I've got two of my retired horses. I've got a 2-year-old stud colt, and then my daughter's thoroughbred. So everything in my horse life kind of just snowballs and ties into one thing to the next. I've been part of a rare breed preservation program for 20 years with Spanish Barbs, and that's why I have so many horses. So
How
they're all
cool.
part of this rare breeds program that I've been, like basically had dedicated the last 20 years of my life to. Um,
Wow.
I do have two horses in training that belong to a client who lives down in Tennessee, and they're two Andalusian mares. And then I have a Lusitano for my own, along with my Spanish barb that I've just had for a year and a half. So, so yeah, I have a lot going on.
You do. It sounds like a lot of very beautiful horses. Is your riding and training right now entirely focused on working equitation? Like you've made a complete transition to that discipline?
Yes and no. So competitively, Yes. I don't show in the like the dressage circuit or no more doing that. But my training, dressage training, my setting a horse up where it could go in any direction that somebody wanted to take it. Um, since being involved in working equitation, I have definitely it's changed the way that I start horses. Once they're going under saddle. Um, so yes, I'm definitely like working equitation focused right now, but I think it's also really important that a horse has a really good um, solid foundation and can do lots of other things. But if you have a working equitation horse, it's going to do lots of other things too, just
Mhm.
because, you know, the horse has to have, the basis, the basic solid. The horse will be confident. You'll have a great relationship with the horse. So you could go out and do other things with it.
Yes, it seems like that's kind of, I mean, I did about 3 minutes of reading up on this prior, and it seems like that's
Mhm.
kind of the point, like, make them really well-rounded animals, so I mean, really focus on the connection of horse and rider and make them really well-rounded animals. Do you know anything about the history of working equitation that you could share just before we get into more of the details?
Sure. It's a fairly new sport to the US. It began in Southern Europe, the countries of France, Italy, Spain, and Portugal. All got together and developed this discipline. And the first championship show was held in 1996, I think, in Europe. And it really was created to showcase the Iberian horses and the training that a horse would have to be working out in the field with cattle. So here in this country, we work cattle with a rope, and in Europe, they work cattle with a big long pole called a grota. And um, the horses, must have um, the agility, the balance, the athleticism to work cattle. And as they established the sport, other countries started to get a little bit excited about it because it's something new. And it came to the US probably like about 18, 20 years ago. Um, Mostly beginning out west, and it has slowly worked its way east over the time now to what it is now with a national governing organization here in the U.S. And I think like you know 20 other countries maybe um, are involved and have their own governing associations as well. Um, it's it's still very small, even in Europe. It's still small, but definitely growing, and people are just finding it to be something new and fresh and exciting for them and their horses.
It does seem so fun, and it's really intriguing just how new it is. Like equestrian sports, so many of them have been around forever. And this one being new in the US in the past 20 years is, I mean, in the context, so incredibly new. And it's very cool for that community to be building and for more people to be gaining interest in this sort of discipline. I'm sure for the same reason that you gained interest in it. Um, so
Mhm.
that's really good context to start with. And then another incredibly basic question, but what is working equitation?
What is it?
Like I I know
Keep it simple.
I know
I'll tell you.
Yeah, tell me what it is. And then I think also, Stephanie, I'm gonna try turning your video off for a second because it's coming in a little bit glitchy and I think it might help smooth out the audio, but I'll turn you back on if it doesn't make any difference. Um, but just so you know, we'll see if I can hear you more clearly this way.
Okay. All right. So working equitation has 4 trials. The first one is dressage, and it's a dressage test that looks like a regular USDF test, but it has some different things in it that would set it apart from a standard dressage test because working equitation is based in cattle work. So the tests are going to have elements that, even at the lowest levels, that would describe a movement that you may need working cattle, like a rein back at our intro level. It's scored the same way, 0 through 10. The score sheets look the same. There's collective marks. You wouldn't really know it was different except what is in the test. In the dressage test, we're all looking for the same thing, a horse that's accepting of the bit, relaxed on the aids. The first level dressage test is just walk trot. Next is the ease of handling trial, which are the obstacles. It's kind of what the sport is known for and what sets it apart from other disciplines. The ease of handling, in the most simplest sense, you would think dressage to obstacles. So it's not a trail course, it's not an obstacle challenge or a versatility course. There's nothing that is trappy in the obstacles. We're not trying to, like spook horses with streamers and flags and all that. Um, the obstacles are basically things that you would see working out in the field, or perhaps a skill that a horse and rider would need to work cattle. Depending on what level you're riding at would determine how many obstacles would be on the course. There's 19 obstacles that make up the sport, and not all of them would be um, used the same at each competition. Okay, so it's
Makes sense.
like a typical
Question on
course.
that
Okay.
ease of
Um,
handling trial. Does that happen in an indoor arena or an outdoor arena?
it can happen indoor or outdoor, or even in a big field. I have been to some shows that they were on a cross country course,
Oh,
like
wow.
sectioned off on a cross country course,
Yeah.
not like huge. The arenas, like the bigger the better, but average arena might be like, 180 by 300 would be a nice size. But I've also competed in 20 by 40 meter um,
Okay.
arenas in
Wow.
ease of hand.
And do they
Oh yeah,
give
and
you
with
said it's like
dressage,
a dressage with obstacles. Do you have to go like this obstacle first? It's like a course kind of like a cross country course, like you know what
yes,
order you need to do them in?
yes, it is definitely a course. It's in numerical order. There's numbers that are at the obstacles, and you get a course map to tell you where you're going. But you can get to the obstacles however best suits you and your horse, as long as
Okay.
you go in numerical order. So there's some strategy. You want to really set it up um, to make your horse look the best. If you know that your right lead is better, you're gonna, come off an obstacle and pick up a right lead and, circle and go to the next obstacle. So there's a lot of technical strategy um, to it, which makes it really fun. And for the ease of handling, what we're looking for, again, just like in the dressage, a horse that's relaxed and confident, and that there's flow through the course. Rhythm is staying the same, that it looks easy, the ease of handling. The third phase is the speed trial, and it is a course with maybe a few different obstacles, or maybe the course is rearranged a little bit more differently than the ease of handling. And this is against the clock. And you would get penalty points if you knock something down, or you, I don't know, if you had some mistakes. There's lots of things in the rule book, but if you made some
Okay.
mistakes, you would get time added on. The thing about the speed trial is, if you, like, say you saw on YouTube the working equitation, you see these guys, like, and women, going like speedy fast around the course, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's just like one little piece of the sport. And it's not about going fast and horsemanship going out the window. It's really about your horse being really adjustable, staying balanced in really small turns. Think riding a jump off course. You're gonna come off the obstacle, make a sharp turn, go to the next, maybe go take the jump on an angle. So again, there's the navigation is what's going to make your time quick, not necessarily going flat out. And in the spirit of the sport, we really want to encourage good horsemanship in the speed trial.
That
The
makes
fourth
sense.
trial, which is optional, yeah.
Can I ask a question about the ease of handling both of those trials? Are you getting cumulative penalty points similar to eventing across all 3 or 4 of these trials? And then in the speed one, is it factoring in both speed and the equitation in some way with the scoring?
Um, for the speed, it's just time and penalty points should you knock the jump down, or knock something else down. Um, in the ease of handling, you get scored with 0 to 10 on each obstacle, just like you would in a dressage test.
Cool.
And you also get collective marks for that.
That's very cool. Okay, continue. Sorry for the
Did that answer your
interruption.
question? Oh, it's all right. Yeah, break in anytime. So the fourth trial is the cattle trial. And if it is even held at a competition, um, it's optional. You don't have to do the cattle. Um, so you work as a team of 3 or 4 riders, and each rider has a number on a herd of cows that you have to cut out of the rest of the herd, and you and your teammates get to move the cow down to the other end of the arena and put it in a pen, and you have 3 minutes to do it. And 3 minutes doesn't sound like a long time, but if you are even, like a little bit good at it, and maybe you have some nice cows, you can just kind of walk or trot it along into the pen. When you start chasing the cows, it takes a lot longer, and you usually don't really get it in unless you have, a lot of experience doing it.
Okay.
Here in the US, we don't have a lot of opportunities to have the cattle trial. Our championship shows are required to offer the cattle trial, but our regular license shows, you know, there's really just a handful of them across the country that do offer the cattle. Um, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy learning about how to move cattle in a nice, quiet way. This isn't cutting. This isn't team penning. Um, this is working equitation cattle. So it just sets it up a little bit apart, as does the dressage from your traditional dressage.
Yes, okay, and with the cattle, again, going back to scoring, is that is that you did it or you did not do it, or do you get a better score if you do it faster?
So the quickest time wins. So if you get your cow in a minute 30 seconds, somebody else, is at the 2 minute mark. Okay, so the fastest time wins, but you can also get penalty time taken off if um, one of the other cows comes across the foul line, or
Oh,
one of your teammates goes across the foul line um, for too long. um, have to think more of the rules. There are certain things that happen that could get you penalty time
okay,
for
that
that.
makes
But
sense.
if you don't pen your cow in 3 minutes, then you get nothing, a big
Got
zero.
it. Okay,
But you
and
had fun. But you
yeah,
had a good
but you
time.
had
You laughed a
fun.
lot.
You get to bring the memories with you still. Um, so over these 4 3 or 4 trials, is is the same horse and rider pair, um, building up their score over the 4, or is it like there's a winner within dressage and you get a fresh start and there's a new winner within ease of handling? Is that which way does it work?
Yeah, that's a really good Okay, yeah, it's a really good question. And the scoring for this sport is more complicated than anything I've ever experienced. I'll try to keep it simple. Um, the dressage, ease of handling, and speed all get pinned separately. So yes, there's a winner for dressage, a winner for ease of handling, a winner for speed. Where you place in each of those three trials, you get a certain number of points. Okay, so if there's 6 people in your division, the winner would get 7 points. The second place winner would get 5 points, and work it down. That happens for each trial. So the winner overall, there's an overall champion in reserve, is the one with the most points at the end of the show.
That's
So you
cool.
could, it, so if you don't understand the scoring system, and like, well, I was first in dressage and I was first in ease of handling, but I was last in speed. Like, why aren't I second or whatever?
Yep.
You have to really understand the scoring process. So it's one of these disciplines where it's not over till it's over, because a lot can happen um, in those first few trials. And then if you are a fairly competitive person, you'll know how well you need to do in speed, um, to maybe win your division. So, um, yeah, so there's an overall champion and overall reserve champion for each division. There's 7 levels in the sport, and I can go through kind of what each one of those. The introductory level, it's just done in walk and trot, and no speed trial for the intro level riders, because you shouldn't be cantering. Level 2 is you're cantering between the obstacles, and you're cantering in your dressage test, but you're still trotting the obstacles. At level 3, you're cantering almost all of the obstacles, and you have changes of lead through trot. And at level 4 is when your work in collection begins, and you've got collected trot, collected canter in your dressage test. And in the ease of handling, all of your changes of lead will be through walk, and you're cantering all of the obstacles. At level 5, the flying lead changes start, and you will be doing more collection, looking for more engagement, and the flying changes between all of the obstacles just kind of makes it that much more difficult. Then levels 6 and 7 are the upper levels of the sport, and you're required to ride one-handed, whether you ride English or Western. And this is where the international levels begin at 6 and 7. So um, Europe, the Europeans' lowest level is our level 6
Oh my goodness.
in the US. Yeah,
Wow.
so they're, it's like this is their culture. This is
Yes.
in their DNA. Okay, so they just start out with all the flight changes, and it
Yeah.
takes us a lot longer to get there.
It's very cool
So
that
level
there are
7,
levels that let you access the sport here in the US, like on-ramp to it.
yeah, yes, because I don't think we would even have a discipline if that didn't happen. I mean,
Right.
we really have to help nurture the lower level riders, into the sport, to be able to get up to the upper levels. So at level 7, that is the international level. Like that's the highest level throughout the sport, and the um, the championships and actually the world championship show that will be held in 2026 in Spain. Um, the US will have its first team being represented, and
Oh, how
it'll be at level
exciting.
7. Yeah.
Wow, that's
So to
very
give you an
cool.
idea, yeah, it's very exciting for the sport and exciting for riders here in the US. To give you an idea of the size of the sport in the US, we have, I think, about maybe 900 members of USAWE. Um, and the majority of our competitors are level 2 amateur riders. Those are our biggest divisions. And as you work up toward the upper levels, there are less riders. I think there were only 12 um, level 6 and 7 competitors in the country this
Oh
year.
my wow.
So
That
it's
must be
small. It's
6 and 7 must be incredibly challenging with I mean, even with a small sport with only 12 riders, that says a lot.
yeah, it is challenging. Uh, there's a lot of technical um, parts that not every rider um, wants to ride that technical, and it's very demanding for the horse as well, because you might have like 2 dozen flying changes in an ease of handling course.
Wow.
Um, so so with um, with the 4 trials and all the levels that we have, and there's also divisions. There's open for professional riders or people that get paid to do horsey things. There's an amateur division and also a youth division.
Okay. So there's definitely I mean, it's actually pretty easy to get your head around what this discipline entails because there are similarities to other disciplines. I really like that somebody can win one of the trials and like in addition to there being an overall champion. I think that it's fun that you can win one of the trials and kind of like, hang your hat on that versus in eventing, if you have one phase
Yes.
that you kind of fall out of bed on, you're you're not gonna be having anything really to bring home with you. I also like that the levels are pretty clear. Like, I'm sure that there are nuances that we haven't discussed, but it seems pretty clear, like, what it takes to what differentiates level to level. You did mention that somebody could be an English or Western tack. Is that,
Yes.
um I'm just mostly curious about how that works in dressage because I picture like Western dressage, the horse is in a different frame than in English dressage. Is the judge just factoring in the tack that they're in and adjusting expectations accordingly, or how does that part work?
All the expectations are the same whether you're riding English or Western. I think this is the only discipline where English and Western riders compete against each other. What working equitation, it's a working sport. So we're looking for a horse, whether he's built uphill like a Iberian or built downhill like some other breeds, or maybe a little drafty. We're looking for a horse that is on the aids, is balanced in harmony with the rider, a horse that is working, in a good workman-like frame. So English or Western, it shouldn't matter. Yes, you will see riders, whose horse may carry himself differently. Maybe that horse doesn't have the suspension in his trot, or maybe the I don't know, the flexibility or something because of its breed. But there are other more important things um, than how a horse moves. And that's where I think the sport is really growing, with people that are kind of phasing out of dressage because maybe they don't have the big fancy mover, and they're going to be stuck, like, can't get past second level because you
Yeah.
need this and that. Big movers in working equitation is that's not a working horse. Like a horse with, a ton of suspension in their gait isn't is going to get tired out there in
Yeah.
the field working cattle.
Yep.
So a horse that is an efficient mover and using himself well, and is in an uphill balance, is going to score well, whether you're in an English or Western saddle.
Okay, that did clear it up for me. Um, thank you. So I understand that, and the other thing that I have on my mind is what does a competition how does it actually run? So what I mean by that is like, do you get on your horse to do dressage and then you get off and the ease of handling is maybe the next day or it's in an hour? What would somebody expect from a working equitation competition in terms of like how many times they're on and off their horse and what the schedule is like?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in a 1 day show format, everybody rides dressage, everybody rides ease of handling, everybody except intro levels rides speed, and it's a long day. um, a 1 day show can only really do like 20 to 22 riders. Um, then there are a 2 day show where you would do dressage and some easy handling the first day, and then maybe some other divisions do their easy, and then everybody does speed. And maybe there's a cattle trial after speeds. That's your 2 day show. The championship shows are so much fun because they just last a long time. Thursday, you get there for your vet check and you get set up and you get to ride and warm up. Friday is usually all dressage. Saturday is all ease of handling. Sunday is speed and cattle. So our championship shows are really, like 4 days or 5 days of fun and camaraderie and some riding.
How cool. I love that. Are championship shows limited to just the upper levels, or do they have lower levels as well?
Every level. Yep.
How
Level one
cool.
through seven.
I love that, you mentioned the camaraderie, and I can just imagine for some reason, this sport, I feel like I can tell that the community around it probably because it's a sport that is fun. Like, it seems like fun is at the forefront more so than a lot of disciplines.
Yes,
It seems like the community would be very cool around this sport. So
that's what everybody who yeah, that's what everybody who joins in says that um one, it's a challenge. It is a challenging sport. It is not easy. It's not like you can memorize a dressage test and then go to a show. I mean, it really takes like half a year to learn the rules, to get your horse, confident and comfortable with what's being asked. And so it's hard. So the people that are coming in from all different disciplines and different experiences, and every kind of breed of horse and then some that you can think of participates. Just being there, just training for this is like makes it special, So there are riders that are more competitive than others, but I would say the majority of riders are just like glad to even be at a place where you could compete, and everybody cheers everybody on regardless of if they're in your division or who they are. It's one of the most welcoming disciplines that I've experienced, and that's what makes it I think kind of special too, is that we all just kind of want to get through the ease of handling and not DQ
yeah.
because of, a rule that you forgot about.
Yeah.
And you like when somebody DQs, unlike eventing, you don't have to pack up and go home. You still get scored for your other trials. And you could actually win with a DQ as long as everybody else in your division DQ'd. So, you know,
That's really cool.
so
It's good
yeah,
vibes. I really
everybody
like
wants
it.
to feel.
Will you tell me about how um, what the training is like for a lot of the people participating in working equitation. And what I mean by that is like, I'm assuming there are not very many trainers around the country, and a lot of people don't have access to a trainer who is very well versed in working equitation. So, is the norm that most people participating are finding resources on their own and day in and day out mostly working on this on their own and then maybe going for clinics every now and then, or um how are people working on what they need to work on um in between shows?
Mhm. Yeah. So if you have your basic dressage down, like rhythm, relaxation, some lateral work, some suppleness, you can you can go intro level. If you work with a dressage trainer that is more classically inclined, then maybe a little more competitive dressage inclined, you will be able to execute and navigate the obstacles fairly well. But you have to learn all of the little nuances of each obstacle. And you can read the rule book, which tells you what the criteria and the execution is. But you really have to do it. Like you really have to go to a clinic um, at least a couple times, because there are things that, although it's in the rule book, you don't experience until you're actually like on your horse doing it. So, for example, I work on my dressage at all with, I have horses right now at levels 1 through 7 and in between. So whether it's my level 7 horse or my 5-year-old, I'm working on the basics of dressage. If I'm having a problem in an obstacle, it's because of my dressage. It's not necessarily because of the obstacle. So going to clinics is going to teach you how to ride the obstacles and what is expected. You're right, there aren't a lot of trainers across the country. Um, I'm part of the USAWE Professional Instructors Program, and we have 19 um, instructors throughout the country that are recognized by the organization and um, who are accredited to teach. But there are also other competitors that teach working equitation. But if you're not a working equitation rider, judge, or trainer, you can read the rule book and get an idea of what is being asked. When I started in the sport in 2017, there were no resources. I mean, like I had to drive 8 hours
Oh my
to
gosh.
take lessons in working equitation. Okay. And I had no idea what I was doing.
Hmm.
And nobody else did either because at that time the sport was like only 10 years old. Okay. So I watched videos of these international riders who weren't even, like I came in at, level 3 or something. Um, what are they doing? I read the rule book. I would take videos and it was, there are more resources now, but there's still far and few between, really. You know, Fortunately, as the sport is growing, and we have, more judges now, um, there are more opportunities, but we live in a huge country and you have to travel. I hear people in my clinic say it a lot. Well, there's nothing close by to me. Well, how far are you willing to drive?
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to drive. you know, until the sport is mainstream, and I don't think it will ever be mainstream because it is hard and it's
Hmm.
challenging, and people just, not everybody is driven and has that passion, and that's okay. Um, but it takes a commitment, and I think with with regular dressage and then some supplemental obstacle work, somebody would be ready to compete. What I found in my experience, it takes about 6 months.
Okay, 6 months before you're ready to compete, if you're able to make it to a couple of clinics.
Yeah, yeah.
And the clinics are probably the only place that most people are able to actually practice the obstacles, unless they had a trainer like you close, which I, I would imagine would just be very lucky.
Um, Obstacles, like you can use a lot of things just laying around your barn for
Okay.
obstacles. So you don't have to get really fancy with it. But to experience regulation sized things,
Yeah.
yes, you would need to go to a clinic. But just, every like kind of um, obstacle, you can use cones instead of slalom poles. You can use trash cans instead of barrels. You use a big closet rod for your garocha pole. You can put a ring on a jump standard. You can make your gate into your arena. You can use. So
Okay.
you don't have to go out and purchase, a bunch of expensive things. You have to get creative. That's what you have to get. And
Okay.
once you ride obstacle in the sport, you'll go to like a garage sale And you'll be like, hey, I could use that for my slalom, or oh, that would make a great figure eight. Or,
That's too
oh,
funny.
there's a bell stand. You don't look at random items the same after you start riding the obstacles.
The people who are hosting that garage sale will will be selling some things they might not have expected to. Um, that makes a lot of
Exactly.
sense. I I'm going to take us. I'm going to kind of circle back because it just came to mind. I'm picturing these different trials, and I know they can be in English or Western tack, but what is the norm for turnout? Like if I were to go to my first working equitation competition, how like what should I plan to wear? And have my I mean, I guess I know my horse would wear probably his normal if I were an English rider could wear like an all-purpose saddle, I would assume. Normal tack
Yeah,
and turnout.
any kind of saddle. What's important is that your tack and your attire are in the same genre. Okay,
Okay.
so you wouldn't have like a all-purpose saddle with like
A cowboy
full-on
hat.
dressage. Yeah, exactly. Or you wouldn't be riding Western and have an English bridle. Like it has to be very clear.
Okay.
And what we're looking for is working attire. So like Western pleasure bling, no way. Like
Got it.
that's one, it's distracting. it's
Yeah.
not, it's not, it's not a working outfit. Okay. Now, neither are like white pants,
Mhm.
right? But um, if you're going dressage, I think the majority of people just wear conservative colors. You can wear, navy pants, you could wear black pants, you could wear white pants and a black coat, as long as you are in the dressage mode. And
Genre.
for
You're
Western, there's
committed.
different styles of Western. Yes, right. There's like the Vaquero Western, there's the, cowboy West, there's different styles. And again, your tack should be clean and in, working order, but it doesn't have to be fancy. A bunch of silver on your saddle and your bridle isn't going to get you anywhere. We have in our collective marks a presentation mark, 0 to 10, and your horse should be definitely clean. Um, Braiding is not required, but it sure could earn you a point or two.
Okay.
If you come in the mains scraggly, and Western riders band the mains, English
Mhm.
riders braid. Um, you really want to come in presenting really well, and that score will reflect in your presentation mark. You can also wear traditional tack and attire based on maybe your own heritage or your horse's heritage. For example, I ride my Lusitano in Portuguese tack and attire. So I have a Portuguese dressage saddle and all of the little uh, pieces that go with the tack that are classic for the Portuguese riders, very traditional, like the crupper and the breastplate and the furry thing behind the saddle and my outfit and the whole thing. So,
How cool.
um, if you, yeah, I mean, it's fun because I like to dress up for my
Yeah.
horse things. So um, it's just something new and fun. But you could ride in Spanish attire. I have a friend that rides Australian stock horses, and they ride in all Australian tack and clothing. As long as you're consistent with what you're doing and it's clear how you're dressed and what your tack is, that's good. But
Okay.
as I've heard judges say, this isn't a costume class.
Got it. That yeah,
And we're
got it.
what we're doing is we're we're representing um, cultural heritage. That's the sport is has defined itself by showcasing different riding cultures.
I when you were talking about, having your Portuguese attire and tack on that horse, I was thinking about my sister because she hosts, Ask an Expert every other week, but she's in Portugal right now, and she's in Portugal for the next few months, and I want I was gonna say I was gonna call her after this, but I'm sure it's, like, the middle of the night there right now, but I think she should seek out people who are maybe doing working equitation over there and see if she could get on a horse or something because I know it's more established there than it is here. It might be cool for her to kind of see what's going on over there.
I was just in Portugal riding in October.
Really?
So I can after we do this, I can definitely give you some leads if you wanted
Wow.
to pursue that with her.
That's so
I think she
cool.
would
Yes, I'll
really
relay that to
enjoy
her.
it.
I'm sure she would love it. It's amazing you were just over there too. Um, okay, the last thing I want to make sure that we cover because I'm sure people listening to this are chomping at the bit to dip their toe in the water of working equitation. And I know you mentioned, I think you said USAWE is the organization. Is that where should they look that organization up to see if there are like local chapters near them or to get signed up so that they're on some sort of a e-news that goes out, or what is the best way for somebody who wants to get involved and is like just at the very outset of it?
Yeah, there's a couple different things. First, the usawe.org website will give you like anything you want to know about working equitation. The rule book is on there. There's also the list of professional instructors, as well as our affiliate organizations. So AOs are like your local chapter that represent USAWE. And there are, I think, more than 40 now, maybe across the country. So you
Wow.
look for your affiliate organization tab on the website and see if you can find somewhere even remotely close to you. Um, there's also we have 7 regions within the country, and on the website you can find what region you're in and then look for your regional director, and that regional director knows everybody that's doing working equitation in the states that that region covers and can put you in touch with people or with AOs in that area. Um, for people in the New England area, um, my organization, I'm a AO called New England Working Equitation, and I have a website. Um, I host shows and I teach clinics all over New England and beyond. Um, and anybody can reach out to me directly from like anywhere in the country, and I could hook you up with the right person for where you are. I'm fairly well connected through the organization, so I could definitely point you in the right direction. So anybody's, feel free to contact me directly. We have the show season begins in, well, out west, down the southwest. They have shows starting in January, I think, out there. Um, but the show season usually begins around March and April. except in New England, of course, where our first shows might be in May or June. But if you are interested in the sport, find a show to go watch or volunteer at. You will learn so much by volunteering, and some of the positions, you don't have to have any working equitation experience at all. Um, so it's really a great way to meet people. Even if you just go and watch the show, you will learn a lot about what is expected. Um, and I can guarantee that you would be, welcomed, and maybe even have to like reset the obstacle course, or move obstacles or something if you wanted.
That's such great
um,
advice. All
yeah,
of that is so actionable and so helpful. Is there you mentioned reaching out to you, and that's such a generous offer. Is your website the right spot for people to look for you and get in touch, and what's the URL for your website, if that is the place?
it's New England. Yeah. Yeah, my website has my email address on it. And the website is newenglandwe.com.
Okay, you mentioned that. Sorry, I didn't realize that was yours. Okay, so
That's okay.
newenglandwe.com is Stephanie's website. And what's your email address just in case people want to just get right to you?
New England Working Equitation at Gmail.
Amazing.
All spelled
Um,
out. New England Working Equitation.
that is kind of a long one,
Yeah,
but
and
it's
so uh yeah, I was just gonna say, in on the USA We website, there's also a calendar of events, that you can go to. Yeah, all sorts of good information there.
yeah, that seems like a really good place
And
to start.
I had mentioned earlier that, if you watch these videos on YouTube, that you're looking at, like the European Championship riders mostly.
Mhm.
And there's either you watch it and you say, wow, I'm so inspired, I want to do that. Or you watch it and you're like, I can never do that. Remember, that's like the Grand Prix of working equitation. I don't mean to be like a big ad here, but I have a YouTube channel, New England Working Equitation, and I post um like some of my rides on my lower level intro level 2 horses. So if somebody wants to see like what it looks like when you start out with a horse, I have some videos on my YouTube
Oh,
that
that's so awesome.
won't
It's
be
it's
intimidating.
doesn't come across as an ad at all because everything you are offering is so value add. Like, these are the things that are helpful to people who are interested. So thank you so much for, um, creating those resources so that people can start navigating this, because I know there aren't a whole lot of places to go for this information. So that's super helpful, and I am so pleasantly surprised. I have my head somewhat around this discipline, like much more so than I expected to. And you gave us so much actionable advice about how to learn more, how to get involved if you want to get involved, and what it looks like, what it takes. So, thank you for making this such a fruitful hour. And I feel very energized because I think this sport just sounds like so much fun. And I really hope that some people listening, I hope this inspires them to give it a try.
Yeah, definitely, just learn more about it, and start talking to your friends about it. And you know all the trainers or instructors that I know are willing to travel great distances to get people started in the sport. So yeah, hopefully it's been helpful. And were there any questions from the audience out there?
We covered them as we went. So they were asking about things like the attire, and there was a question about what makes a good working equitation horse, but I think that I think that you described that really well as just throughout the conversation.
Super.
Yeah. And if anybody has questions, I hope they'll reach out to you. And Stephanie, we really, really appreciate you. It's such a pleasure to meet you and to learn from you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really, really enjoyed sharing what I know, and hopefully people can have fun with this. I know I
Totally.
have.
Yes. And for those of you listening, if you do um start exploring this, please let us know whether it's in the Facebook group or send us an email. It would just be fun to kind of follow along as you embark on this. Or if you're already embarking on it, let us know. I saw one of our members, Debbie, I think she's done some practice at least. Maybe she's competing already, but um, just keep us posted because this is very fun and we would love to be along for the ride on it. Well, Stephanie, thank you. Have a wonderful evening and we will catch up later.
Okay, thanks again.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
All right, we are out of the live. That was so fun. You really are such a wealth of knowledge. I You had the answers, the perfect answers to all those questions.
Oh, thank you. Well,
Yeah, thank you. I mean
it's
that you made the
yeah, it's
job very easy to
what
bring
I
people
do.
information.
Good. Yeah. Well, I love talking about it. I
Yeah, I
love
can
doing it. I
tell.
love talking about it.
Yeah, that I think that's the
Where
most
are you?
important part.
Where do you live?
I'm in Denver.
Yeah. Where do you live? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.